Okay, so I ran into a lesson that I had not done, or at least I don't remember doing, and it's again one of those really subtle lessons. We'll be lying on the back, we'll be doing a little bit in sitting, and at one point we'll be on the stomach. Um, and it's mostly about paying attention to the breath and how we hold it, how we hold it. Our patterns of anxiety always affect the breathing. And it's an interesting lesson because it makes the distinction of asking, is your pattern to hold your breath in or to hold your breath out? So when we stop the breathing, we can stop it at the top, we can stop it at the bottom, and we can stop it somewhere in between, right? So we'll do a quick scan. And it's up to you. You can have your legs long, you can have your knees bent or your feet standing. And just take a moment to check in with yourself. And since we're all of us veterans of listening to how we rest on the floor, how does the floor speak to you this morning? What is the floor telling you about yourself? Where's your clearest contact? And does your contact, or the places that have light contact or no contact, do those places, any places, change as you breathe in, as you breathe out? Now, the next time you breathe out, without forcefully breathing out or doing anything different, the next time you breathe out, could you simply hold? Until your physiology tells you, you will automatically take that next breath in and pay attention to how the air rushes into you. It just rushes into you. And then when do you take over? So play with that inquiry a few times. You can take a couple of normal breaths and then decide which one you're going to stop the breath after you exhale. And listen to the mechanism of the inhalation. Where does it start? What happens inside of you before you breathe in? What are the sensations? What is the movement? Then leave that and just breathe normally. Just breathe. And then can you play with the other side of stopping the breath? When you breathe in, stop the breath. Hold the breath. How long do you hold it before it becomes a necessity to let it go, and feel how the air leaves you and then comes back in? And what do you sense in the volume inside of you, in the chest, in the ribs, the back of the chest, the base of the neck? What sort of pressure internally from the air that you're holding inside, externally from the floor pressing into you? So how do you hold the breath? And then when you exhale, do you just exhale, or do you breathe a little more in first before you exhale? That might be also possible. And so would you say, with just this few minutes of exploring, holding the breath in, holding the breath out, what would be your habit? Are you more of an inhale and hold or an exhale and hold? And what Moshe says about this is that for most people, one of these ways of breathing will be prominent, either in or out. And this is reflected in the structure of your chest and your manner of standing. There are those who stop the inhalation and those who stop the exhalation. And each of you should pay attention to which one feels the most familiar. Please come onto your stomach. And lie in such a way that the tops of the toes are down and the heels are further apart than the toes. So maybe the big toes are touching and the heels are looking away from each other. And the arms are framing the head and the forehead is down. The arms are framing the head, the forehead is down, so that the back of the neck is long. And you can rest out of this position and turn your head whenever you like, whenever you need to. And pay attention to the breathing. And then hold the breath in. Next time you breathe in, stop the breath and wait and listen. What is different now with this feedback you're getting through yourself, through your bones, through your chest, the support from the floor in the front? Does this give you a different perspective on your interior? So just that, we'll be stopping the breath after the inhalation, and you can take a few normal breaths in between as a pause. Listen to parts of you that may begin to protest. Can you hang in there? Let's take a pause, and you can turn your head to one side or the other if this position is proving to be difficult or uncomfortable. And from here, whichever side you turned your face towards, how did that change the weight across the front of your chest? What did the turning of the head relieve? Did your breathing change? And simply from here, with your head turned to one side, could you breathe in and stop the breath? If for any reason lying on the stomach is uncomfortable, you can, of course, lie on the side. You can sit, whatever. We want to do what's comfortable. If you turned your head to the side, and it looks like most of you did, go ahead and slowly turn your head to the other side and feel what changes across the front of you. As you turn the head, and how this side might be. And play with stopping the breath on the inhalation. Where does it stop? How do you stop it? Where are you holding? How is it different being constrained by the floor against your belly? And then turn your face so that the forehead is down again, the arms are framing the head, and the back of the neck is long. And turn the feet so that the heels are together and the toes are apart. Little Charlie Chaplin-esque. And now play with stopping the breath at the end of your exhalation and waiting for that inner sense of knowing. Your body will automatically take care of it for you. Just pay attention how the breath comes in, how it rushes in, and when do you take over? Is it the same on the right side as it is on the left? How is it to be resting when you're empty versus resting when you're full of air? What difference does that make? And leave it and come rest on your back. You can bend your knees, you can have your legs long. And listen and feel if anything has changed. Again, stop the breath. Stop the breath on the exhalation. And listen for the mechanism. rush of air? What is it that pulls the air in? Do you fill up from the bottom up or from the top down? Or something in between? Just breathe. And come again onto your stomach. And this time we're going to support the head in the hands. So the elbows will be on the floor and you'll have your chin resting in the palms of your hands. You know, like if you were lying in the grass. The heels of the hands, the elbows will be on the floor, but the forearms will not be on the floor. There you are. You're watching a bug in the grass or reading a book in front of you. And now from here, in this position, listen to your breath in and listen to your breath out. And breathe in and stop the breath. And listen. And of course, breathe out as you need to. Take a couple of normal breaths and do that again. Stop the breath on the inhalation. Listen to the elbows on the floor. Listen to the face resting in the hands, the spine, the weight, the gravity pulling on your bones. Rest down. You can turn your head to one side and just breathe normally. Come again into supporting your head in your hands so your face is looking forward, more or less. And now quite different. Stop the breath on the exhalation. And breathe in when you must. And study that. Is there a place where you, in between, stop the breath as you are breathing normally? Is there a familiar place? Are you an in-holder or an out-holder, or somewhere in between? Is there a bus stop on the way in and out? And come rest on your backs. And again, listen for your habit. Where do you tend to stop your breath? In or out? And now could you stand your feet and place your hands again in that position you were just in? So you're sort of supporting your chin in your hands, but you're on your back and your elbows are in the air. You're cupping, you're holding your face in your hands, holding your face in your hands. And using your hands, can you turn your head to the right and to the left the tiniest, tiniest bit? And be very clear that you're not tilting your head. It's just the width of your little finger is maybe how much you're turning your nose. And be very precise that you're turning your head around the axis of your spine. In a way that feels like it's floating. And notice if one side is much easier. Are you holding your breath in or out as you listen to this very precise movement? Could you let the air out and stop the breath and continue turning your head? Leave that, rest the arms. Come again onto your belly and up on your elbows with your face supported in your hands, your forearms vertical. And now find this tiny, tiny movement of turning your face a little right and a little left using your hands. Are you holding the breath on the way in, or do you hold it somewhere in between, on the way out, on the way up? The next time you exhale, can you stop the breath and continue turning the head? Feel how the forearms move, the sensation through the elbows. Now, what are your feet doing? Are the toes inwards? Are the toes outwards? If they're outwards, turn them inwards. If they're inwards, turn them outwards. So the heels will be together or the heels will be apart. What difference does that make? And then could you continue turning your head in this just minute fashion, but stop the breath at the top, at the inhalation. Where do you look with your eyes? Now, can you turn your head and just breathe without stopping the breath? The tide comes in, the tide goes out. And you're very, very precise with this tiny, tiny movement of the forearms and the head around the axis. Place the head down, the forehead down, and the arms framing the head. And breathe and feel if your contact along the front of your body is any different. If there's any difference in how you breathe now, lying on your belly. And come onto your back. And now, has anything changed in your feeling of the volume of air, the structure of your chest or your rib cage? If you breathe in and stop the breath, what is your sense of volume? Breathing normally. And then again, stopping the breath after the exhalation. And just waiting for the rush of air in, and then listening. What happens? What is the mechanism? What is your response? What are your habits? And now, can you stand your feet? If you're not already, stand your feet so the knees are bent. And can you take hold of, well, if you have hair, can you take hold of, with both hands, with your elbows in the air, a few strands of hair at the back of the top of your head? A few strands of hair at the back of the top of your head. And if you don't have any hair on the top of your head, then use your fingertips somehow along the sides of your scalp and maybe a little bit to the back. The idea is to give a very, 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 very slight pull. And it's not that we're pulling the hair at the root. The idea is to pull the hair and so that it pulls the scalp. And the scalp pulling across the back of the skull gives the cue to the back of the neck to lengthen. You're using just a couple of strands of hair. This is in another lesson we did in the summer. We did this, but find a way where with both hands, you're finding a way to give a cue to the scalp, to the back of the neck to lengthen. And following that you feel the spine lengthening and the feet pushing, and everything's going up in the direction you're pulling. And now play with that as you either stop the breath on the exhale and wait, or stop the breath on the inhale and wait. But continue this very subtle, steady, almost insistence, but not that strong of a word, but just reminding, lengthening through the back, from the hairs, from the scalp, the back of your head. And paying attention to the breathing. Breathe out and hold, or breathe in and hold. And then take a rest. Stay with the breath. And come again onto your belly, unless you have a reason not to. Come again onto your belly and have the nose down, the forehead down, the arms framing your head, the elbows on the floor, the palms on the floor, and turn the toe pads of your feet under, like the runner's starting block. And just the very gentlest of movements, can you push through the feet in such a way that your spine lengthens. It doesn't shorten, it's the pressure from the toes against the floor raises the knees and allows you to bring the belly away from the floor, and the pubic bone can travel up in the direction of your sternum, and your skeleton is moving upwards towards your head, and the back of the neck is lengthening. The whole spine is lengthening. See if you can find that organization. Pushing very gently through the feet. You'll find a sweet spot through which metatarsals reaches through into so you can lengthen the spine. The back lengthens. There's a feeling of growing. Now, are you holding your breath? And do you hold it in, or do you hold it out, or do you hold it somewhere in between? And can you play with this movement, which is very, very small? Holding the breath at the top, or stopping the breath at the bottom of the exhalation? It's really not even a movement, it's more of an organization. Turn your head to one side and take a rest. And now again, turn the tops of your toes under, the feet are parallel, the legs are parallel. And the same idea, but this time, can you take hold of your scalp either by a few hairs at the back of the top of the head, or somewhere so that you can pull the scalp upwards away from your feet. Are you holding the breath? Do you hold it in or do you hold it out? And play with just pulling and stopping the breath. Where do you stop it? Just keep pulling and then sort of lay off and then pull again. And that the scalp lengthening gives the feet a cue. The spine can lengthen. You're lengthening from the feet. You're lengthening from the scalp. The elbows stay on the floor. Can you just breathe? Can you just breathe now? And come onto the back and take a rest. Are you an inhaler or an exhaler? Or is it balancing out? Stand your feet again. Take hold of either your hair or your scalp on your back, elbows are in the air, and give your scalp the cue to lengthen the spine, and the feet help just the littlest bit so the skeleton's moving up towards in the direction you're pulling. And then can you lift the head? Lift the head. Lift the head. And do you lift it as you exhale? Do you lift it as you inhale? Do this several times. The cue from the scalp, the feet, the whole intention is moving up, and lift the head. Doesn't have to lift a lot. You don't have to see your feet. Just feel this lengthening and feel the breathing, and then stay there and turn your head. Use your hair or your scalp or however you're holding your head to turn your head around the axis without tilting it 1 degree. Are you breathing in? Are you holding the breath at the top? Can you breathe out and stop the breath, or do you stop it on the way? Pause and set the head down as you need to, but then pick it up again with the hairs on your head, and very precisely turn the head around the very top of the spine. It is such a tiny movement. Make sure that the head does not tilt. One ear does not come closer to one shoulder. It comes a little closer to the floor and the other to the ceiling, but doesn't tilt. What is your pattern of breathing? And rest down. Roll to your side and come to sit with the soles of your feet together. And place your hands so that just your finger pads are taking hold of your skull. The little fingers and maybe the middle of the forehead, and the other hands, the thumbs somewhere on the sides, maybe close to the ears. So you've got like a little hat, a funny little hat. It's just the finger pads touching very, very lightly. And now from here, can you close your eyes and tilt your head using your hands the tiniest bit to the right and to the left. So in a way that feels like the head is gliding over the atlas, the occiput and the atlas and listen to which side is easier and which side is not as easy. And keep it very, very small. And there's no turning. There's no turning of the head. This time there's no turning, it's tilting. So one ear comes a little closer to one shoulder, and the other ear comes a little closer to the other shoulder. It's so tiny. It's so tiny. The fingertips are on the forehead. The little fingers. It's like you're handling a jar of nitroglycerin. And can you find a way to evenly tilt from one side to the other and pay attention to the breath? It's not that the whole shoulders are tilting, it's just the skull at the very top of the spine. You can guide it with your hands. And again, play with this breath as you're tilting your head and you're listening very precisely. Stop the breath at the exhalation and continue moving the head, or hold the breath at the inhalation and continue moving the head. And then find out, can you move the head and just let the breath come and recede and come in and recede? And you're very precisely tilting the head. Rest as you need to and pick it up again. Right? It's these tiny lessons, right? It's these little tiny movements. And that's enough. Come rest on your backs. Come rest on your backs. So here's what Moshe says about this. At this point in the lesson, he says, we are talking about a small difference, which is a huge difference in the behavior of the body. But since we are habituated to these movements, with each one always making his or her own mistake, we have to wake up completely and pay attention to whether we really do what we think we are doing. And you've probably heard me say that before. Are you doing what you think you're doing? So these tiny movements give us a chance to really hone in. Come onto your stomach again. And place your fingertips in the same odd way on your head. So the elbows will be on the floor, out to the sides. And your face will be down, your forehead will be down, but you've got your hands like lunar module landing on the moon on both sides of your head. And from here, can you just lift the elbows the tiniest bit from the floor several times and play with breathing in and holding as you lift and lower the elbows the tiniest bit. We're breathing, just breathing and continuing to lift and lower the elbows. Listen to the right side, listen to the left. And stopping the breath after the exhalation, lifting and lowering the elbows. The face is on the floor, the head is down. It's a tiny, tiny movement. Listen to the shoulder blades. Could you think of the shoulder blades getting wider as you lift the elbows? And this pattern, your pattern of breath, where do you hold? Can you play with where you hold it? Where you stop the breath? And then can you just let your elbows float away from the floor and back down as you just simply breathe? And come on to the backs. Listen to the volume of air as it comes in. Has anything changed in your own pattern? These tiny, tiny movements of the head that we were doing are so profound in their effect that they have on the whole system. So can you bring yourself up to standing and find out what the change might be for you? And stay with the breath. You might catch yourself, oh, I could exhale more. My habit is to stop somewhere in between. What's different about the breath? What's different about your carriage, the structure of your chest, and how it behaves, how your structure carries your head, and how each tiny movement of your head affects the structure. Might even affect your breathing. And throughout the day and throughout the weekend, as the rest of the country and world is gripped in a state of breathless expectation, you can catch yourself in your own patterns. This is where the real change happens, is right here.